It's Sloppy Saturdays back here with another video. And today we're going over a very interesting topic. We're looking at the ugly side, the dark side of college football. Now, when we talk about transfer portal, it is looked at in a positive light, definitely for the players. We're looking at players who might have outgrown their situation, whether they started out as a small school and worked their way up to a big program, or not only that, maybe a top star recruit that was competing for a job, got beat out for a job, and now wants the opportunity to start elsewhere. It is a great move for players, obviously, as they're trying to maximize their opportunity and maximize their dollar figures as well. But when we look at the opposite side of the transfer portal, for teams that are developing these QBs, it could be a dark side to college football. A lot of teams become the stepping stone for a player. They do all the heavy lifting, the development in the asset, and then send them off to a bigger program because they just can't keep them. Now, nobody has got screwed over as a program more with quarterbacks since the transfer portal really has and NIL has taken an uplift than Washington State. We look at Washington State in back-to-back years, they lose two elite quarterbacks in Cam Ward and now John Mateer. And now this is a very rare situation because when you look at losing two back-to-back elite quarterbacks in 2 years. This doesn't usually happen, but it did for them when they took the chance on Cam Ward and then John Mateer was developing. He took off the next following year. Usually when you lose an elite quarterback, it takes time for that program to, get their feet back together, especially for a mid-tier program. But for Washington State, they lose two elite quarterbacks. Now let's get into these two quarterbacks, why they transferred, and why I think Washington State just can't keep up. So the first quarterback we were talking about is Cam Ward. Cam Ward, I don't care what anybody was saying. I get it, this guy ended up being the number one overall pick, but Washington State definitely took a chance on Cam Ward. When you look at Cam Ward at Washington State, he comes in from Incarnate Word. He comes in from an FCS school. Yeah, he tore it up, but this was a zero-star guy that dominated in FCS football. Now, I don't care what anybody says. You are taking a chance on Cam Ward, bringing him in, bringing a zero-star FCS recruit. Now, for Cam Ward, he absolutely tore it up at Washington State. And when he got to Washington State, they were a Power 5 school. That was the big thing. For a guy that was zero-star FCS guy to come into a Power 5 conference, it was basically a beautiful matching for Cam Ward and Washington State. I think even more for Cam Ward to get his name on notice. And Cam Ward absolutely dominated. We're talking about a guy with over 3,500 yards his 2 years at Washington State. And we're talking about 23 touchdowns, 25 touchdowns. He really put his name on the map. But now, again, unfortunately for Washington State, they lose Cam Ward after he broke out on the scene there. He transfers to Miami, and he absolutely tore it up at Miami in his final year. You could argue he was the best quarterback in college football last year. At Miami, he has 4,300 yards, 39 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. His stats completely take off with more surrounding pieces around him on a bigger stage. Like I said, he was a Heisman finalist at Miami, and he becomes the number one overall pick and enters the draft from Miami. Now, again, for a school like Washington State that was the ultimate stepping stone for him, that really had the biggest hand in Cam Ward's development, he's known as a Miami Hurricane. This is tough. Now, while Cam Ward is there for 2 years, there is another quarterback learning behind him in John Mateer. Now, John Mateer was a 3-star prospect coming out of high school. This is what I mean how you have to tip your cap to Washington State. They take a guy out of Incarnate Word that was a 0-star, and now they take a 3-star guy and turn him into an elite college football quarterback. Last year, John Mateer absolutely tore it up. When we look at passing and rushing, John Mateer had, why can't I find it? He had 3,139 yards passing, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Then he had 826 yards rushing and 15 touchdowns. This guy had over 40 total touchdowns and nearly 4,000 total yards. Those are just godly numbers. Now, obviously, John Mateer tore it up, but again, Washington State just can't keep up. He goes to Oklahoma. Now, he goes to Oklahoma for a couple of reasons. One, coaches there from Washington State, went to Oklahoma as well. So again, he goes to a bigger program with some familiar faces. But not only that, he gets a $2.7 million NIL package. Now, we see in back-to-back years, like we just mentioned, Washington State develops two elite quarterbacks, two quarterbacks that at a time really nobody wanted. They have the biggest hand in development, and when they're ready to take off in their last year, they lose them. Now, I think this is for a couple of reasons. I think the main reason why Washington State can't keep up and keeping these quarterbacks in their final year is because they're just not a total team. We know Kenny Dickinson, he's insane at developing quarterbacks on the offensive end, but on defense, they are very lopsided. In Cam Ward's final year, they ranked, let's see where they ranked. In Cam Ward's final year, they ranked 38th on offense and they ranked 85 on defense. This is from a points per game metric. That's a huge gap. And it's an even bigger gap in John Mateer's year. In John Mateer's year, they ranked 6th in total points on offense in college football and FBS football, and they ranked 101 on defense. This is a huge gap. This is why I don't think they're able to keep these quarterbacks, because they're not really able to make a mark in college football with them. With John Mateer in his last year, they were barely over 500. I think they were 8-5. And then with Cam Ward's final year, they were 5-7. Again, they're not able to develop a total team with these quarterbacks and put them on a bigger stage. Now, the biggest reason why I think they can't keep these quarterbacks is because in 2024, under the realignment, they did not realign to a Power 4 conference. They end up staying into the Pac-12, which made them an independent school. A lot of these guys who want to become NFL quarterbacks, they need to go on a bigger stage. They need to at least be in a Power 4 conference. Again, we've seen even players like Sam Levitt this year. He stays in the Big 12, even though it's not the greatest conference. He's in a Power 4 conference. If you're not in at least a Power 4 conference, again, what's going to make a NFL prospect want to stay with you? I get it. You want to keep your ties to who developed you. But again, you got to be in a Power 4 conference. And under the realignment where other teams from the Pac-12 joined bigger schools, Washington State stuck back. They became independent. Now, again, the Pac-12 might get revamped, and you're going to see Mountain West schools join them. But again, if they're continuing to develop quarterbacks, they're going to need to be in a main power conference school for these quarterbacks to stay. That's the main reason why I think they can't. And then when it comes to NIL money, there's always going to be more NIL money out there. But for John Mateer, they offer John Mateer a 7-figure deal. So it's not that they don't have money for the quarterback to stay and stay loyal. I think it really comes down to the power conferences and them not being in one. They do have the money. Again, they're not going to be able to offer top dollar, but if they're going to offer enough for a quarterback to stay. But again, they need to have a complete team, and also they need to be in a Power 4 conference, which they're not going to be in the foreseeable future. Now, this is the dark side of college football. Like I just mentioned, we're looking at a program that had the biggest hand in developing possibly now 2 NFL quarterbacks. They developed a number 1 pick, 0-star, coming out of FCS football, and they developed another elite quarterback who we have in top 5 talks this year going into college football as a 3-star prospect. They have been a quarterback factory, but again, they're sending these guys off to bigger programs to ultimately succeed and be remembered from these bigger programs when they're doing all the dirty work. That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays, and we are